Hi, my name is Emily Colavito, and this is an analysis of Bravo's reality TV series Vanderpump Rules in terms of interpersonal communication and the theory of motivated information management. So there are two characters in Vanderpump Rules that have a very abstract romantic relationship. The first is James, who's an aspiring DJ working at Lisa Vanderpump's restaurant, Sir. The second is Raquel, who is younger, fresh out of college, and new to LA. There are a number of times throughout this series where James is accused of cheating on Raquel, and each time I notice that Raquel lets it go. So I was wondering why. The goal of this project is to examine this relationship further in terms of the theory of motivated information management. I wanted to start with a little background on the theory of motivated information management. So when an uncertainty discrepancy occurs, we make a decision about what to do with that information after assessing the costs and benefits of a particular action. These assessments can be impacted by emotions and other biases. This theory accounts for the varied responses to uncertainty apart from anxiety alone, efficacy in managing uncertainty, and it accounts for the fact that this exchange of messages is dyadic and transactional. So there is a receiver and a sender. There are three phases of information management that occurs when there's some sort of discrepancy. Phase 1 is interpretation, so that's when an individual notices some sort of uncertainty discrepancy. Number 2 is the evaluation phase. So this is when an individual will think about the outcomes of seeking information and consider efficacy. There are three types of efficacy. One is communication, so how successful an individual thinks they will be at seeking information in terms of their communication abilities. So the second one is target. So an individual will consider who they're reaching out to seek information from. So if they're seeking information about something negative about a person, they will most likely not ask somebody close to that person who's likely to protect them. And the third is coping efficacy. So this is how successful a person thinks they will be able to cope with information that they seek out. And I wanted to mention, according to Lynch in 2019, individuals are poor at predicting how strongly they will feel emotions in the future, so this can be a little biased. Phase 3 is the decision phase, so this is when an individual decides what to do with the information that there's a discrepancy towards. So we are likely to seek information when we expect positive outcomes and have high efficacy, and we're likely to avoid info when the opposite is true. Three research questions I came up with are the following. Number 1, what sort of responses does Raquel have to uncertainty discrepancy besides anxiety? Number 2, what are possible outcomes that Raquel probably considered when faced with uncertainty discrepancy? And number 3, in terms of efficacy, what are times that suggest that Raquel is considering coping efficacy? For the method, I watched season 5 through 7 of Vanderpump Rules just when Raquel joined the cast, and I examined each time James was accused of cheating on Raquel. So more specifically, I would record a variety of things I saw during these occurrences, such as who the sender of the message was, how the receiver, Raquel, responded, such as her nonverbal and verbal cues, and then ultimately the result of what Raquel did to manage the information. So question 1 was, what sort of responses does Raquel have to uncertainty discrepancy besides anxiety? So during season 5, there are two girls that come up to Raquel during a concert and let her know that James cheated on Raquel with them. So Raquel's facial expression is unbothered to try and save face, but we know she's embarrassed, so that could be classified as an emotional response. Another response that Raquel has is another emotional response where, in another instance where two people come up to Raquel and let them know that James has cheated, she, as you can tell by the bottom right picture, has a very sad expression, and then you can see in the clip that she has a very shaky tone of voice. Just to refresh our memories, question 2 was, what are possible outcomes Raquel probably considered when faced with uncertainty discrepancy? So based on previous interactions that James has had with others, he has a very short fuse, so Raquel probably considered that he could blow up at her if she sought out more info. And if you can look at these pictures on the bottom, you can see other instances where James has blown up at people. The last question was, in terms of efficacy, what are times that suggest that Raquel is considering coping efficacy? So this, I think, is more evident based on what Raquel allows. Any person not considering coping efficacy, in my opinion, would not allow somebody to say the things that James has said to her. So on the bottom, there are 2 examples of times that James has blown up at her, and then on the picture on the bottom right, after she's clearly upset, James just walks away from her. So overall, you can see in this relationship that James is not very good at communicating feelings with Raquel, and he tends to just blow up at her. Overall, I think Raquel completes all 3 stages of the theory of motivated information management and has the tendency to not decide to seek out more information. So the implications of this. In terms of Raquel, the implication of not seeking more info out is that nothing changes in the relationship. But the importance of these implications. So maybe these findings show that in heterosexual relationships with an aggressive male, the female is more likely to not seek information when discrepancy occurs. Or maybe it shows something about relationships in LA or relationships with this age demographic. We would need to do some more research to determine that. There were definitely limitations throughout this study, so only one relationship was observed, and like I was saying, the demographics are a limitation because it's only one age range. This is a heterosexual relationship, and they're based in LA. Going off of this, after looking at James and Raquel, I would definitely be interested to observe more relationships, maybe ones that are not heterosexual or between older individuals. So for example, in a relationship between people outside of LA, I would be curious to see if there would be differences in ways that individuals tend to manage information. In the future, I think I'd like to observe relationships within the show Queer Eye, because that would, instead of a romantic relationship, it would be a friendship, and it wouldn't be a heterosexual relationship. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and I hope that you learned a little bit more about the theory of motivated information management.